We acknowledge that we were founded on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, the Attawandaronk, the Mississauga and Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, and now live on land that is home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We have many representatives working across this land now known as Ontario, and we acknowledge that there are 46 treaties and other agreements that cover the territory. We are grateful to be able to work and live on this land, and thankful to the First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people who have cared for these territories since time immemorial, and who continue to contribute to the strength of Ontario and to all communities across the province. To continue to center reconciliation, we encourage our team, partners, students, and teachers to take time to learn about the lands they are currently on. Visit native-land.ca for more information.
Hi everyone, welcome. My name is Victoria and I'll be taking you through a tour today of a berry farm. So today I'm at Rochon Farm in Edwards, located just outside of Ottawa, Ontario. And they grow a variety of crops here, but they also grow all three berries that we'll be seeing today, which are raspberries, blueberries, and strawberries. So my role on this farm is I visit the farm on a weekly basis, and I'm their crop consultant. So I go through mainly the strawberries, blueberries, and raspberries, and check how the crop is progressing, and let them know if there's anything of concern, or set a date for picking and things like that. Um, so here I'm just going to start with switching my camera around so you can see the raspberries. We'll start with the raspberries. Okay, so here is the raspberry crop at Rochon's. And what you'll see here is a summer fruiting raspberry, or as you can say, there there's summer fruiting and everbearing. So what these ones are they'll put out canes. These primocanes growing will grow up this year, and then next year there'll be these fruiting canes. So on the second year, they'll produce fruit. Whereas in a fall bearing or ever bearing raspberry, they will grow up primocanes like those ones there, and they'll fruit on the same year. So in here, we're looking at some flowers in here, and as well as some buds. So each flower will produce a berry. So you can see some bigger buds developing here, and they'll probably be picking these by the first week of July. So another month they'll get a crop off of these. So you can see that they're also tied up, and they tie them with twine, and they do that earlier in the year. And what that does is it just provides support for the canes so that they don't blow over in the wind and cause damage to the berries. So that is called a trellis system. And you can see it sort of has two sides to it so that all the berries can be upright and easy for picking. Once these canes are finished producing in the fall, they'll go through and they'll actually prune out all of the canes that produced this year so that it'll make way for these primocanes coming up so that they can be picked next year. Before I move on, I'm just going to go to the blueberries now. So if anyone has any questions, let me know. What are the seeds from the strawberries poking out? So these are raspberries. Um, so I'm not sure quite what seeds you're wondering about. If maybe you can give a little bit of a description. Okay, so yeah, so actually the growers will get a raspberry cane that's produced by propagators. So they'll actually buy canes about just a foot tall, and they'll plant those into the ground. And after about 3 years, they can produce fruit. So it takes a little bit of time to get the plantings established. But once they're established, then they'll be able to pick in there. So we're going to move on to the blueberries. So this is actually a newly planted field of blueberries. And what you'll see is they aren't as bushy of a plant as some established fields, and that's because they've only been in the ground for about 2 weeks. So you can see that they're planted and they'll put this fabric down. And what that does is it helps reserve the moisture in the ground, as well as keep weeds from growing up around the plants. So this is a nice new field. The biggest challenge with blueberries and planting them is getting the right pH of the soil. So pH is based on the acidity and basic scale of 0 to 14. And blueberries prefer a very acidic soil, so we call that about a 5. Whereas around here, we're sitting around a 6.5 or 7 naturally in our soils. So growers will use a couple ways, like using sulfur to lower their pH. So how tall blueberry plants are. So they can actually grow up to be around 5 feet tall. That's sort of the most established planting. Over here, I'll see a little bit taller of a planting. These are about 3 years old. So in here, you can actually see that they're about 3 feet tall now, and they are actually producing some green fruit. So a blueberry planting can last up to 20 years if it's managed well, but typically around 10 to 12 years is pretty typical for it. Sorry, lost you for a second. So about 10 years. Same with raspberry plantings. Typically, growers will keep them for about 8 years, and then they'll replant. But typically, they replant previous to that so that they always have a crop coming. So here's actually some green fruit, and there is a nice bloom still in here. So we had some good weather for pollination. So all of our bees and bumblebees came in, and they did a great job pollinating to make every little bloom have a blueberry. Um, so how many blueberries are on each plant? My guess for these smaller ones would probably be they're usually picked about 4 or 5 times. I'm not actually sure how much would be on each plant, but my guess maybe for a plant like this would be about 200. So this is more of the established plants. How long until you can eat the blueberry in a season? So blueberries will start to be produced around the end of July and into August. So their season is pretty much from mid-July to into September. So what growers will do is they have several varieties in the field, and they use early, mid, and late varieties to extend that season.
Interesting question.
So I'm just going to walk down through here. Also at Rochon's is some apples, and so we're just going to walk by here until we get to the strawberries. Theodore wonders where you get the seeds from your blueberries. So again, that comes from propagators in Ontario. We purchase them through Canada. In Nova Scotia, there's some propagators in Quebec. So primarily Ontario growers will get their plants from out east, and they come all checked that there's no virus or disease or anything on those plants, and then they can plant those into the ground, and they'll have a better establishment for that year. Oh yeah, so I grew up actually on a dairy and cash crop farm, and currently I'm not living there anymore. I'm with my husband on his dairy and cash crop farm, but I started working for an agronomist, and an agronomist is somebody who studies crops. He went to university, and he's a certified crop advisor. And so I started working as an assistant for him and learned that I really like to be out in the field looking for weeds and diseases and insects. And so I slowly got into the horticulture world, which, excuse me, which is things like fruits and vegetables. And I sort of specialized in berries. So that's how I came into the berry consulting world. Yeah, so how do you pick the berries? So currently in Ontario, we mainly hand harvest them. So in Ontario, there's a lot of pick your own operations where you as a consumer can go and pick your own berries. And then we also have workers that will pick the berries by hand. There are some some operations that do have mechanical pickers and robotic pickers, but that's not yet a readily available tool in Ontario yet. But certainly in California, strawberries are starting to be picked by a robot. So there's a machine that goes right over the raspberry or strawberries, and it will identify the color of the strawberry, sorry, and it will actually pick it and put it, sort it, and that's how they can harvest. So I actually, growing up on a farm, I went to university and took biology. Um, so I didn't have direct agriculture schooling, but you can certainly get into it if you have the experience, such as working for an agronomist or an egg retailer or things like that. With a lot of training and experience, you can get into the field. But a lot of people do take agriculture as a major in school. I'm just gonna switch it back to me now. So I'm just walking. Hopefully, I'm not too out of breath. Just getting to the strawberries here now. So we have two types of strawberries. Unfortunately, the second type is at a different farm here. So we'll just look at the first type, which is called June bearing variety. So the June bearing strawberries produce from June to July, and they're a perennial crop. So the year you plant them, you plant to plant. You make that plant grow in the first year, and then in the second year, it will produce strawberries. So the other is an ever-bearing strawberry or a day-neutral strawberry, and that's typically grown on plastic, and the year you plant it, you can harvest it. So they typically start to be harvested in July, and they can actually produce all the way up until frost, so October, around Thanksgiving. So we're just gonna flip the camera here again. All right, so here's the June bearing strawberry field, and these are almost ready to pick, another couple weeks. But you can see they're mulched with straw, and that pipe is an irrigation pipe. So we did cross the pond, and there was that's where they can draw their water from. About 2 weeks ago, we did have frost, so they needed to protect the berries by watering over top of them, and they were pretty successful because there's several fruits in here, as you can see. So I'm just going to pan over and introduce you guys to Anne-Marie Rochon.
Hi.
She is an owner of Rochon Farms, and I'll get any questions if you have for her, you can be answered now.
Sounds good. I will just introduce myself a little bit, maybe tell you a little bit about our farm, a little bit of a background in the history of the farm. So the farm's been around now for about 67 years. It was started by my husband's grandparents. His great-grandparents also owned a farm, but not this one in particular. And then the farm was handed down to his parents. And then about 2 years ago, the farm was handed down to us. We grow a very large variety of fruits and vegetables, which I'm sure you saw on your tour in the back. We have over 200 varieties of fruits and vegetables. We're sitting on about, our total farm acreage is close to 300, and we have 17 greenhouses. Number 18 is in the works this season, so we're hoping to increase to have another greenhouse. Greenhouses allow us to have produce this time of year where normally we wouldn't, because as you've seen, like the strawberries aren't quite ready yet. But it's great to have some products ready to go for us to go to farmers markets, because the farmers markets start in May. So it's always nice to get a jump start on the season. We have a pick your own strawberry patch, which should be starting, as Victoria said, in the next couple of weeks, which we're very excited about. So you can come out, bring your families out and visit us here, and you can pick your own strawberries. We have baskets for sale, and you can come out and fill a basket with the sweet berries of summer, and they're delicious, and we're going to have a great crop this year. I think I'm really excited to be kind of out here and see everybody again. And the season for strawberries is usually about 3 weeks. If we can push it to 4, we'll take it, but generally the rule of thumb is about 3 weeks for pick your own strawberries.
Great. So we do have a question here. How do you deal with pests and bugs? So one of my roles is to come out to the field, and this is one of my tools that I use. It's called a hand lens. So I can use this to look at the leaves and see if there's any little bugs on here. So I'm using integrated pest management. So that's using dealing with good bugs and bad bugs and seeing if they do need to be managed. So sometimes when you're out in the field, you can find some beneficial mites or lady beetles. You might know them as ladybugs, those cute little red bugs. So those are the good guys, and if there's enough of those, then we don't have to come in and manage any of the bad bugs. But certainly there sometimes are bad bugs. And we do have certain ways, such as traps or sprays and things like that, that we can manage the bugs. What are the white things between the strawberry plants?
Maybe the flowers.
So do you mean the flowers? So this is a strawberry flower. Each one of these will produce a strawberry. If you're referring to maybe this right here, this is straw. So that's where the strawberries get the name from. And that is a byproduct from wheat, barley, oats, but primarily wheat straw is used in strawberries. I guess there is a bit of fall rye straw used as well. So growers will actually put it between the rows for the picking season, but then they'll add some more right over top of the plants when they go to sleep in the winter, called the dormancy time, and they actually protect the berries from winter injury. It's kind of like a blanket over sleeping in the winter time. So come spring, about first or second week of April, they'll come in and remove the straw. So that's what you see here is they've taken the straw from on top of the plants and removed it off like that, so that it provides a nice bed for picking, as well as it keeps the strawberries clean. If they're sitting instead of on the soil, they'll sit on top of some nice straw. How do you water all those plants? So there's a couple ways to water them. Some growers have what's called drip irrigation, which is actually an irrigation line that is just sort of like a little hose that goes under the plants, just right down the middle. And they can use that to water the plants directly at the roots. And then there is another type, which is what you see here, the pipe in the middle. And that's called an irrigation pipe. And there's two different nozzles, so you can irrigate them for frost protection to protect the blossoms against the cold weather. And then you can also just water them. So maybe I'll ask Anne Marie, have you had to turn on the irrigation pipes this year?
This year for the frost, yes. We did have to turn it on. There was about 10 nights John, my husband, spent in the field with the irrigation pipes running. And because of his heroism, he's such a great guy, we saved all of our strawberries. It was an amazing, because if we lose that flower, we lose a strawberry, right? Because the way a strawberry grows is it grows out of the center of this little white flower. So if you lose a white flower, if it turns black, so you can see like there's a flower here, but that little yellow thing will one day be a strawberry. So it's going to like pop out of here. If you don't protect that little flower, then you don't get a strawberry. And we had that happen before. We lost a bunch of strawberries to the frost. But what the water does when you spray it on, kind of acts as like an insulator. And it protects the plant, it protects the flower from the frost kissing it. We say like the kiss of frost, from touching that little flower. And if it turns black, you won't get a strawberry. But thanks to John and his hard work and being out here all night for like 10 days, it was so many nights, he was able to protect all of them. And then come the summer, if it doesn't rain very much, like we always say, an ideal summer is sun during the day, rain at night. Not always the way summer works out, but that would be perfect. If we get a really hot summer, we set up these really long pipes and we can put them, we don't have to put them every row, but every couple of rows, because right in the middle, you can see there's like a sprinkler and it sprays all over the plants and it keeps them watered. The ground is pretty good at retaining moisture too, but always a good idea to water your plants so they don't wither. We want really strong, really big, healthy plants to make really beautiful strawberries. And as you can see, some of them are coming along. We are going to have a really good bounty this year. We're really excited for the amount of strawberries that we're going to have just for everybody to come out and pick, and a lot of really, really delicious varieties. We have some really, really nice, there's all kinds of varieties of strawberries, but we always try and pick the best ones.
We should show you guys another variety. So this is one variety that's got some pretty big fruit on it, as you can see here. So it's sizing up well. So it's a little less than 2 weeks away, that one. But mainly they'll be picking in 2 weeks in here. But we'll go to another variety. They use different varieties to spread out their season, like Anne Marie was saying, over 3 weeks, sometimes even 4. just for June bearing, and then they switch over to that second type of strawberry that I mentioned called day neutral or ever-bearing strawberries. So in here you can see a lot more bloom, and because they're some of the first berries, there's a lot bigger flowers in here. So that typically means they're going to produce a bigger berry. Um, I saw a question come up. I missed it earlier. Is it hard being a berry farmer?
It has its ups and downs. It's a lot of picking. It's a lot of work to take care of all these plants, but we really enjoy it. It is, it's not, I mean, it's a lot of work when you're talking about plants of this magnitude. We have a lot of plants out here, and this is just one field. We actually have another field that's just plants, strawberry plants as well. But what's great about it is we plant, the plants are, they're ripe at different times. So you're not picking all the fields at the same time. That would just be really overwhelming. So we are able to space them out, different varieties, produce at different times, grow at different times. So what we're able to do is pick them, if we start the strawberry season, and then some of the, as you can see here, they're not ready yet. We'll pick one field, and when we're done picking that, usually the next field is ready. So it's not too overwhelming. We're not picking all at once, and we have such a great crew of people to help us pick. We bring in temporary foreign workers from Mexico and Guatemala, and some of them have been with us for a very long time, so they're very skilled at what they do, and they know our farm and our fields really, really well. We could not do what we do without them, and they're such a welcome sight in the spring when everything is getting going. And these guys really just help us get the season going and help us throughout the season. They help with picking because everything has to be done by hand. You cannot do anything with a machine when it's this delicate because the machines are a little rough on your plant. So all the strawberries need to be picked by hand. We weed by hand. The straw is removed by hand. Everything we still do is done by hand, just like John's grandparents would have done. We still do the same thing today. It's a little bit better for the plants, and you just don't want squished strawberries before you even get them at the market.
So there's another question. What do you do when berry season is over?
Well, when berry season is just a small chunk of our season. So we have farmers markets right across the city of Ottawa. We're at quite a few. We run a CSA program as well. And the CSA program is a community supported agriculture program where people in January and February will subscribe to either a weekly or bi-weekly, which is every other week, box, and they'll come to the farm or one of our pickup locations, or we'll deliver to their home and they'll pick up those. So we have to grow other things in order to help people to put in those boxes, and that helps us kind of supplement. Our berry season is really only one chunk of what we do overall, and we also go to market. So our season goes from the start of the summer season is usually in May and then the end of October, but we actually start in January. We have to seed. So we seed a lot of our peppers and tomatoes get seeded in January. And then once they're big enough, they get transplanted into the greenhouse. And then we have all the greenhouse work to do. So we do tomatoes and peppers in the greenhouse. We have blackberries in the greenhouse, which is another really delicious berry. We have all of our spring crops are in the greenhouses. So we're looking at radish and onion and lettuce and all that goodness is in the greenhouse. So we have so many things to keep us busy outside of strawberry season. Strawberry season is by far my favorite season because it's my favorite berry. But there are other things that happen on the farm that keep us really, really busy. And the farmers markets are one of those other major things that we do.
Yeah. After they are done picking these berries too, what they'll do to help make the plant grow back really nicely, like lush, like you can see these rows. So once they're done harvesting them, they'll actually come and mow the plants right down. And that is called renovation. And what it does, it just gets rid of all the old leaves and makes room for the new lush growth to come back. And strawberries, June bearing strawberries, will set their buds the end of August. So it's getting those plantings looking the best as possible this year's August for next year's crop in June and July. So they're working hard all the time in the fields, getting the berries ready for just those 3 weeks. of picking. But as Anne Marie mentioned, they're always busy, either getting the crop set or going on to another crop. But they are picking berries from strawberries, at least from June into October, with the day neutral strawberries.
Yes, but the pick your own season is the only time that we pick these guys. The ones that come a little bit later, those are just for market because we don't really grow enough of it to run the pick your own season from June to the end of October. So we really try and save those ones just for market. And these guys are all for our pick your own season. We really also don't have a lot of time to be running a pick your own season right until the end of October. So we do it for those 3 weeks in June. People can come out and have great berries. And then we keep the ones that come a little bit later. So the more fall berries, which are also delicious, we keep those ones for market. So you'll see strawberries at the market right up until the end of October sometime. Depends on how cold it is. If it freeze, then maybe not, but I mean, it's pretty long. We can get a pretty good season out of them.
There's a question. Do you ever get tired from picking all the berries?
Oh, absolutely. It can be a little exhausting, but it's just so much fun. We just enjoy it so much. That's why we need people to come out and help us pick, because we have a lot of strawberries to pick. And the more people that come out that help us pick them, the better it is for the berries and the better it is for the plants. And for us, it's just great. So if as many people as we can get out here helping us pick is always fun, and we enjoy it. It does get really tiring, especially, near the end of the season when it's getting a little bit cooler out and everybody's thinking about winter and cozying up. But when you're in the middle of summer and it's a beautiful sunny day and they're beautiful berries, that you pick one, you eat one. You pick one for your basket and then you eat one for yourself. And that's kind of the best kind of strawberry picking.
Great. So I don't know how much time we have left. I'm just going to switch the camera back to both myself and Anne Marie. Thanks, everyone. Some of the students would like to know what both of your favorite berries are. So as long, even though I'm in strawberries a lot more than the raspberries and blueberries, I do like blueberries myself the best.
Yeah, blueberries are pretty good. Yeah, the raspberries, the blackberries. We do also grow, I don't know if you saw the really interesting berry, the haskap. That one's pretty good too. Looks like a stretched out blueberry. That one's tart but sweet, and when you mix that with the strawberry, it is just delicious. So that's another favorite too. Strawberries for sure are my number one though.
Yeah. Okay, thanks very much everyone for tuning in, and happy Local Food Week.